these villages that I've seen, I mean, everybody, not maybe every grandpa, but in every family, they have iPhone and 5G. But the traditions that they live by and how it looks, it definitely recalls more a previous century. In some places, I still see people living in these special caves. They're not cavemen. It was a way to save on buildings that you dig a hole. So you want to extend apartment, you dig another room.
Hello everyone, this is the Space Cafe podcast and I'm Marcus. It started with an innocent look, well, maybe not so innocent, but more surreal looking photograph I came across. A photograph depicting an astronaut atop a camel in the middle of the Mongolian desert. And that picture sparked a discovery, a journey for me, one that led me to uncover a vibrant and largely unseen side of space exploration. And in this episode, my friends, you will discover how space enthusiasts and innovators and nerds and experts alike from some of the most unexpected corners on this planet, far from the usual places you all know and we all know, the ones in the limelight of the media interest. But the other ones, they're also solving challenges that even the big players are grappling with. And the one who uncovered all this and brought me into his world is space photographer Matjaž Tančič from Slovenia. He's been living in Shanghai for 10 years now, and he's one of Asia's leading space photographers. Through his Mars on Earth project, Matjaž has revealed a hidden ecosystem of creativity, so to say. Watchmakers crafting Martian timepieces, beautifully handcrafted. Engineers inspired by the endurance of desert camels, and much, much more. Today, we will explore how the next big breakthroughs in space exploration might well come from places like a workshop in Mongolia or Slovenia or wherever on this planet. Matjaž, it's an honor to have you in the show. And without further ado, let's dive right into it. Let's go.
I hope it's recording.
Matjaž, we got that out of the way. It took us a while.
Yes, no comment is China.
So tell me, it took us quite a while now to get online, to get things in recording mode. Is this the Chinese firewall? Is this what is causing all those issues?
Yeah, it's true. The thing in China is there are some apps, some websites. There are certain things that they are blocked. So you never know. You come up with a new tool as this recording. It's always a guess. It's going to work. It's not going to work. Then you have ways to, let's say, go around this wall, which we shouldn't be talking about and we won't. But it also sometimes works more reliable than the others. So it's basically problem solving on every stage. It's like the thing is that China has their own tools, which are all inspired by the tools we are using, usually even a little bit improved. But then, I would have to be teaching you how to use them and what would be best. And that could maybe take us even longer than 45 minutes that we needed this time.
Wow. What do you mean improved? Is there like a better version of WhatsApp or such
for
tools?
Sure, yeah. I mean, maybe you heard about WeChat. Mm-hmm. So WeChat, it's the tool that connects and WhatsApp, Uber, banking, TikTok, news, paying all the bills, booking trains. So it's one app there that rules them all the payment. So even if you see, it's not a usual site, but if you see, let's say, a homeless on the street, they also will have just a QR code because there is no cash used in China. Basically, I used it maybe the first year or two when I was visiting China, but then it's just like WeChat, or the other option, it's Alipay. from Alibaba. And again, also Alipay, it's not so much for chatting, but again, you have all the conveniences of ordering food, taxis, booking planes, hotels, everything in one single app.
Wow. Over here in Europe and in different places in the world, there is privacy concerns. Is this an issue? What do people think about this concentration of private data on such an app?
So I would dare to claim that China is probably the safest country in the world when it comes to crime and so on. So this is something that the citizens of China usually, take, we give some privacy away, being monitored by cameras and apps, etc. But on the other side, kids can go at midnight, walk anywhere in China without being accompanied by, parents or a drunk person or a bunch of girls in short outfits. They can go anywhere, anytime. Just, it was 1 week also ago, I just took a photo. There was a nice racing bike and he was tied to a pole with a shoelace. I don't know why they needed a shoelace, instead of I don't know how thick of a chain that you would use in Europe and would still disappear. But yeah, it was tied with a shoelace. So, I keep my front doors open, no matter which city I go.
Wow.
So, there are pluses and minuses.
Wow. Very interesting. Why do you think is that? Is that because there is surveillance everywhere and so crime makes no sense because there is no dark back alley where I could hide to commit a crime?
I think you cannot hide, and in the long term, it doesn't pay. They get you once and you can, lose the benefits of, using the public transport. Maybe we're talking about smaller crime. And if we connect to this social credit that people talked so much about it, there is not, I don't think it exists. It was like a pilot project. But there is maybe unwritten social credit, right? So the thing is, if you're going to do crime as a local citizen in China, as I said, you will have problems getting a passport. You will have problems booking an airplane, train, using metro, not even mentioning getting a loan or opening a bank account. And same goes for foreigners. You start losing privileges and then it's like, what's the point then, how can you live if you cannot use all of these,
of course,
all of these things, basically. Amenities, yeah. So they're very practical people. That's it. Plus, when I work from my laptop in a bar, I leave my laptop on the table when I go on a toilet and phone. Simply, everyone else also has better phone and laptop than me. So there is just no sense they would take it. Their Louis Vuitton shoes, they're worth more than my phone on the table. So, and it's same with you, you walk around, you see phones everywhere, you see the packages of delivery in front of the door, maybe even with a logo, maybe PS5, whatever, but you're just like, yeah, it's going to stay there. This is how it goes. It's a nice thing. Similar things I noticed, in Japan, where I was shocked when I saw there was, how they call it, someone was emptying the house, so they put all the stuff for trash, but nobody took it. It's a lucrative business in United States to take a fancy couch or rug, you clean it and resell it. In Europe, it's the biggest hobby of so many collectors or students. In Tokyo, there were brand new golf clubs. There were so many cool furniture, but nobody even touched it. I was tempted, but I was there with the hand luggage flying back next day. So what could I do with the, pole clubs, golf clubs?
What, Matjaž, is this all related to the government and surveillance and whatnot, or is there also a different mindset in people?
I mean, if you're generalizing about Asia, I would say, it's just the mindset, how people were brought up. I guess also because it's very family orientated. I mean, there are different cells, right? The first cell, it's your family. Then it's your building. Then it's your community. Then it's your district. Then it's your city. Then it's your county. So you have to obey in every one of them. Within your family, with your certain set of rules. Within the building, with a certain set of rules. Within compound, with a certain set of rules. So there is some micro management and government done so that, the government doesn't have to do it even, And again, this brings also benefits. Nobody would be starving, basically, because your family will take care of you. If not this, it's going to be your building. If not this, it's going to be, again, the compound. So it's sort of a secure safety valve for many things. It's a network, yeah. And probably also has to do something, let's say, with the religion, with either Confucianism or, in Japan, Taoism, and so on.
So you're currently in Shanghai.
Yes.
And so I'm picturing Shanghai as this insanely huge metropolis, 20 million people, 25 million people.
25, yeah.
So from my perspective as a Westerner, as a European citizen, I'm picturing anonymity. I'm picturing skyscrapers wherever you look, and again, anonymity. So now I'd be super curious to find out how that works, what you just mentioned, that being self-contained into a larger community. How does this work for you? What is your everyday for you like? Is there something like anonymity, like loneliness, or are you contained somewhere?
So there is lots of skyscrapers, but I always lived, which is called the former French Concession, which is a little bit more European. You have these old villas from the time of the French occupying and British and the other, and Americans, Brits, Russians, and so on. So you have, let's say, 3-story buildings, lots of trees, lots of coffee shops, vintage stores, bagel shops. So it's like very, let's say, gentrified and pleasant place to be. And it's also the area where the foreign ideas and shops mix with the local people, the old Shanghaiese living in these houses. So as I mentioned, I just moved. I was living in a ground floor before, and you always meet with the neighbors. There were some elderly Shanghaiese ladies. You meet outside when you are putting your clothes to dry, in front of your house in a small alley. So you have a little chat. So everyone knows what's happening a little bit. It's the alleyway. It's 3 meter wide. And when you enter it, you pass the same neighbors. Some of them, they are cooking outside. It is the city of the future, but there are some houses that would still have maybe a toilet together or a sink outside. So there is a blend of different realities and modernities, let's say. And now I moved just 1 block down, like 2 minutes walking, and it's a bit more, probably 20 years more younger building. So it's 4 floors, nice brick building. But at the gate, you have a security guard, which checks who goes in. I mean, he's there.
So
just
it's like a
to
gated community.
Sort of, yeah. And also then just in front, then my alley, it's the second one to the right when you enter. And there's usually a retired guy sitting there on a chair who is also employed as, checking what's happening. It's very common. In Beijing, where I used to live, you always have these old ladies sitting on the streets with a red band over their hand. And they were the local eyes and ears, which, again, it's exactly the same what we talked before. Safety, yes, but also don't do something stupid, I don't know, with two guys carrying a rug and the legs sticking out, you don't do that. You're going to be seen. So no body disposal or something, that you see in the movies. So it is micro community, where, you say hi to neighbors. But this is the French concession, even if I go to shop or to a restaurant, to a club, I will meet friends. But as, the second I go 10 blocks to the south, north, east, or west, or across the river to Pudong, the modern area, I don't know anyone, absolutely no one, and this goes on. And you can be aware of how big the city is when you sit on a high-speed train, which goes 320 kilometers per hour, and you start driving and it doesn't finish, for maybe an hour, it just blends into Suzhou, Hangzhou, Nanjing, Ningbo, sorry, and so on. So it's, it's fascinating, this scale.
Do you speak Chinese? Now, Chinese Mandarin? There's no such,
I speak a little bit Mandarin. Whatever I know, I know from like Beijing accent. So now when I'm in Shanghai, I don't understand a single thing. But because of the modernity, everyone has the app to translate. So I haven't seen this traveling around the world, and I travel a lot. But here, every time they see you, they would just, say it in the phone and then give it to you, either text or the sound. So everybody is using translation apps, or, they want to chat with you. They would call their nephew, friend, ex who speaks English and put it on the phone. So they're very, very willing to communicate. It's not like somewhere in the East Europe or France that if you don't speak the language, they're going to be just get out of here. Here, they're always super happy to see you. They want to communicate, they want to chat, they want to connect. And just last time, I figure out they have 4,500 contacts on WeChat. I have no idea how this happened. And it's not like, Instagram or X, where you just follow someone that doesn't know you. Here, it had to be, most of the time, has to be like physical to scan your QR code to add you. So people are very, very open and communicative, contrary to popular belief that they are a closed society, they mind themselves, they're rude. That's definitely not the case.
What, to give me a comparison so I can assess the expenses as compared to expenses over here in Europe. So how much do you spend, for example, for a dinner? How much do you spend for a rent for a 100 square meter apartment? So what is life like?
It really, 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 really depends. You can have a dinner easily for $3-4 or euros. If you share apartment in a little bit outside of town, it can be, probably you can get something for 200, 300, 350. I'm saying a bit further out, right? But then the dinner, they go, to $800 per meal in ultraviolet. And apartments can also easily go, to 4, 5, 6,000 to have a duplex in a new building. So that's the case. That's the funny part, you go for dinner, you would normal dinner, you would spend about, with maybe a beer or two, you would spend about 15 euros. But then, you go to have a cocktail and you would pay, the same amount,
Okay.
So the Western things, they tend to be quite expensive, but the local things are, very cheap. So local beer in a shop, €1. You go to, a craft brewery, you can pay for 3 deciliter beer, €12 easily. Not easily, but it happens. But easily €6-7 for a beer, a craft beer.
What's the, like in Shanghai, like your average income that you would compare, or from a job description compared to Western incomes? So how much do people make a month?
Hard question, very hard. Especially as a freelancer, and especially as doing such a big variety of different photo shoots. The thing is more that why I like to work here is because there is such a big variety of different kind of jobs, So you can, one day you can be shooting, let's say, outdoor wear campaign on almost 4,000 meters high, in the mountains in Shangri-La. Then the next day you would go shoot event of Porsche in a desert. Then you do a photo story about female surfing crew in Hainan, which is the Chinese Hawaii, so-called Hawaii. So it's a tropical island with sandy beaches and waves. And then you do, a story about bullfighting in mountains of Guizhou, where bull fights each other and people live like they lived 100 years ago in a very interesting communities with like wooden houses, and they have an amazing wooden towers where every night villagers meet to chat, to play music, to watch a movie together on LED screen. And on the side, they have this bull that they wash, they feed. And when he dies, they bury him like a king in a tomb and have 3-day party. So that's China, you can go from Himalaya to desert to tropical jungle to futuristic city and photograph, from Lewis Hamilton, Cindy Crawford one day, and the next day coal miners or, villagers planting blueberries, or, that's the biggest value for me. Besides, yeah.
It sounds like the bandwidth of possibilities and life is wider than over here in Europe. So is it valid to compare or to say that there are places in China that are, in comparison to Europe or the United States, like way back in history, like, for example, like, I don't know, decades or 100 years back, but at the same time, you have those mega cities that are way beyond our most modern cities, like that you have places that go back to the 1900s, and then at the same time, you have places that go up to the 22nd century. Is that valid to say?
100%, yeah. You go to Shenzhen, I would dare to say, okay, to be conservative, I will say 85% of the cars on the streets are electric.
Wow.
And vans and buses and trucks and the delivery. You see, they have drone delivery for the packages and so on. So, the most modern metro, which is clean. When you are in a hotel and you order food, there is a tiny robot that delivers to you to the 17th floor. Because at the reception, the delivery guy just puts the room number, the little hatch open, it puts the food inside. Then the robot drives to the elevator, calls the elevator, drives with the elevator, and then he rolls to your door, rings a bell by calling the phone in your room, and then it opens, you take out, and then goes back to the elevator and goes wait. And this, it's not one for PR. I've seen in many hotels across China this, even, 3-star hotels. So this is on one side. And on the other side, as I mentioned, these villages that I've seen, I mean, everybody, not maybe every grandpa, but in every family, they have iPhone and 5G. But the traditions that they, live by and how it looks, it definitely recalls more, a previous century. In some places, I still see people living in these special caves. They're not cavemen. Let's not go so, so far. But it was a way to save on buildings that you dig a hole in front of this. I don't know what kind of ground it was. So you could have a very intricate. It's same as in Australia, right? In Australia, you also have, or in Turkey, you also have people living in the caves. So you want to extend apartment, you dig another room. But up front, you have a big glass window and a door and a courtyard and so on. So some people still live there. I would love to basically see even more because for us, it looks photogenic and romantic. But on the other side, people are aware of life standards all around the world. So the kid who grew up there, he would be like, no, man, I'm not going to be farming to earn $12 per month. I want to go, even if it's an assembly factory where I can earn at least $600 a month. And then I'm not going to live in a cave. How can I get a girlfriend to marry by telling her I live in a cave? I have to tell her I have an apartment, I have a degree, that would be a bonus, and I have an electric SUV. So this consumerism, it's basically driving the modernity. So the young people, mostly I would say 90%, they would move out to cities. But the older generations, they would still, live there. They are not craving for the modernities. They have, their gang to play cards. They have their birds in the cages, and they meet with other grandpas with birds in the cages, and they talk about. They fly kites. They grow veggies. They have, good life, especially if the kids, send back money and come visit them more than twice a year, which is already quite a lot in this busy pace. It's complex. I mean, I could talk for hours and hours and still would not be able to shine the light on this complex society, but, at least I can share some. And, talking about these modernities, it's also, how we us met. It's because of the space program that I photographed in China, sort of. And that was, one day in the news, I saw that they are building a Mars simulation base in Gobi Desert. Again, we are talking, about Gobi, that it's always fascinating to go there. And then I found out about the open day of this place, and I flew there with a journalist friend, driving through the desert, passing the camels, and there it was, a big structure that looks like, from a sci-fi movie, with electric rower speeding around, lifting lots and lots of sand. There were some, solar panels and so on. So it was just mind-blowing, and as you could say, only in China. You would go passing these small villages in Gobi Desert, and then seeing something like that. But then
it's like a time travel.
Completely, yeah. But what I noticed quite fast, it was that this base, it doesn't have really a big scientific value or none, but it's more built for education purposes. Similar as, pretty new planetarium in Shanghai, which is the biggest in the world. It's to educate people, to get them interested in science. And yeah, in this Mars simulation base, you could see how you would grow food with hydroponics, how you would take care of recycling the waste, how you would get the energy, and so on and so on. So all the basic modules that we need for the survival, which of course you learn more by seeing than reading about it, and it's abstract, and you get distracted by phones. Even I was like a small kid running around exploring this place. It was a very fascinating place.
Why do you think, or how is people's interest in education in China, in those things? Is education a tedious thing you would want to avoid? Or is it something where like children, people go proactively toward?
Now you opened another huge topic that I usually like to mention because it's so fascinating. So, I come from Slovenia, developed European country. Then, when I was growing up in, let's say, early 80s, it was like, go to school, get college, you will get a job, period. But these things changed. Now with a college or 2 college degrees or PhD, you're still going to be, probably influencer because nobody will employ you and you can work as on a contract. Basically. And what I want to say, in Slovenia, you usually picked what's the most practical and easy to finish. So it was either economy. If you were a bit more ambitious, you go law. And then instead of studying 4 years, you usually studied for 6 years just to extend these student benefits of working with less tax and food, like coupons that it was cheaper to eat outside and so on. China, it's completely different. Kids here, they don't go study what's the easiest and the most practical, but what's the best possible they can afford financial and with their, grades. So if they want to become, let's say, architects, first they're going to look in the States. I'm not sure if Yale and Harvard, they have architecture, but let's say they would have a list of best universities. They would try first Yale, Harvard. If this is not possible, it's going to be Oxford, Cambridge. If this not, it's going to be France. If not that, maybe it's Canada. And then go down, even to, study architecture in Slovenia, because we have a good university for architecture in English language. So they would definitely go on the list and try to get as best education as possible. And this is what it's going to really prove beneficial in this country. Because they're going to have best educated people in every field imaginable. I mean, in Beijing, in their language university, I'm 95% sure my number is correct, but they teach 190 languages. They I don't even know that there's so many exist. They must be already talking about some tribal languages or dialects, but they really value knowledge as number one priority. And you can see this, I mean, Musk was dreaming about this. Was it Musk? No, it was Branson with this train in the vacuum Hyperloop.
That was Musk. That was the Hyperloop.
Is the train? No, it was.
Yes.
Was
Yes.
it? What about Virgin Galactic? They also
Now
had
Virgin
something.
Galactic is Branson.
Yeah, but anyway, one of these two rich guys, they tried to do this train that goes, 600, 800 kilometers per hour. It goes in vacuum, and it would be faster than plane almost. In China, they are already testing on a way larger scale this. They are not afraid of investing money into all these technologies and trying to catch up. We basically catch up and overtake in everything what's possible.
Yeah.
And you can see that the best example is space.
Yes.
I mean, there was a very good quote by Mao, but I forgot. It's something like that they cannot even send a potato into space when Russians and Americans, they were sending satellites. And that was, in the 60s. And now, look at them. They have the most modern and the second space station.
Yes.
When one is, probably going to get decommissioned, they're going to be the only one with a space station.
Yes.
Landed on the dark side of the moon, and probably many more things that we don't even know that they are developing, Also, space tourism.
Yes.
And I guess, they will, overtake the West. One thing is because they have complete support from the government. Then also with this comes, a big market of 1.5 billion. So if you have space tourism, you have enough people who will, wanted to do it. And so on and so on. It's like, the knowledge, it's what.
Yeah. Tell me, Matjaž, how much do you know about the Chinese space program, space industry? Because there's not like too much information that spills over to the rest of the world. I'm just wondering, I read today that they are sort of gearing up for some sort of space shuttle, Dream Chaser type spacecraft that they're testing. Then, of course, we have the space station and space tourism that you're mentioning. So what else is there that you came across?
I mean, there are a couple of very good blogs and websites by foreign journalists doing deep dives in the Chinese space. So everything what's most up to date, it can be read there.
Yes, absolutely.
I can see more what's in, let's say everyday, let's say news or surrounding. And what I notice is immense pride in space, which, it was the same thing in Russia and States, with all the TV shows and posters, and the whole race was actually just about national pride. And they are also speeding up, and also with this, they're getting on the same level as what we had. So there is not a single shopping center around the country that you won't have some space-related installation, illustration, also in the time of Olympics or big brands using, some space-related topics, building, as I mentioned before, the biggest planetarium in the world. And, and I also went to see the rocket launch in Hainan again, where you have the surfers. You also have the rocket launch. I went to see the time when they were sending the second part of the Taihu space station. And it's sandy beach. You're standing under the palm tree. If you booked early enough, you can be in, I think it's Kempinski or one of these big hotels. You can see it from the hotel, your hotel balcony. And you have hundreds and hundreds of people, I would say thousands of people watching. And when I was there was even orchestra, symphonic orchestra playing their classical music when the rocket went up.
Wow.
So it was like a true spectacle, you know. First you listen to this dramatic music, and then you see, you know, I mean, first, you see the rocket, and a couple of seconds after, the sound comes, and it just comes, this wave goes through your body and moves. It's like a physical wall almost, and it is something as spectacular as seeing eclipse. It's something that you will remember forever.
Wow.
You probably saw the rocket launch.
Yeah.
Somewhere. And
Matjaž, this is a beautiful segue into one of your main works you have done recently, and that is the Mars on Earth project. And because this is pretty much an extension, a global extension of what you just mentioned, the presence of space on Earth in unusual places or not so expected places. Because the usual places, we all know, we have the Starship, and we have the Virgin Galactic, and we have the Blue Origin, and we have NASA and ESA and whatnot. But this is just the tip of the iceberg in your observation, because what you're seeing, or what you try to see, what you try to find out, is as to how non-traditional places are thinking about space. And then you came across a pretty surprising and very vivid world that engages with space. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, everything actually started in Gobi Desert, you know. It was like photographer's dream to witness this and take photos in that environment. And I thought that this is going to be just, you know, one story, you know, that I'm going to put in a drawer and forget about it. But I always liked space. You know, as a kid, I had a telescope, you know, try to watch the stars and moon and so on. And just a couple of months after my Gobi adventure, I went to Los Angeles. I wanted to be just holidays, but then just for a joke, I Googled Mars exploration Los Angeles. And what surprised me, it was like not one or two hits, but like hundreds. And I found, you know, Mars architects, Mars farmers, Mars chefs, Mars fashion designers, Mars psychologists.
You're kidding me.
Mars urban planners, Mars watchmaker. And I was like, what's happening? You know, how is this possible that me, and I consider myself extremely curious person, always, you know, snooping around, especially as a photographer, that I didn't know that this exists. So I immediately started writing emails and was like, forget it, you know, I don't need holidays. You know, I still went for celebrity bus tour to see the house of Kubrick and so on. Yeah. But I was like, okay, back to work. And I met a bunch of very fascinating people. Let's say, you know, one of the first people that I met was Dr. Susan Jewell. She's a space doctor. What she does, let's say one of her projects is she developed VR goggles where you're gonna, with the help of VR and AR, it's gonna help astronauts to do operations in space or get certain skills and learn better about medical procedures. Because, you know, you're gonna have avatar of doctor telling you what to do, where to cut, and so on. And what I like about this project, or at least concept of the project, is that it has Earth applications. You know, you would have a big floods like you have now in Europe. People are, you know, cannot get to hospitals. They could airdrop them a couple of these VR goggles, and people could help save lives. Not even mentioning in the war zones and so on. So, you know, that was one of my first meetings. And then I met with Mr. Garo. He's like, he's an Armenian watchmaker who by coincidence, his how do you call watch shop? It's pretty near JPL. So he started making watches that run on Mars time. So it means that the soul on Mars, it's about 40 minutes longer. So he had to slow down the mechanism to make it run on Sol. And it's not just a joke. These watches are worn by scientists at NASA who are operating Mars rovers on Mars.
Wow.
So they go to sleep when there is sunset on Mars, and they go to kids. They were telling me they go on the beach with kids at 10 p.m., when there is like sunset on Mars. And they get up when there is a sunrise on Mars so they can open the solar panels and drive rover. So, of course, you could have an app for that, but, it's not as sexy as a nice Mars watch,
Of course. Is it an analog watch?
It's an analog for sure. Yeah. And more I dig and more I traveled around the world, I noticed that you have similar interesting people all around the world. And this can really, and all around the world, and the project kept evolving, and it's still evolving after 5 years. And the main goal of the project is, as you mentioned, to show this contrast of the space race in the 60s, where you had usually white male working for governments of Russia or states, which were basically racing who's going to go to moon first, plant the flag, do a selfie, and and go home and forget about it for the next 60 years. And now you have people, they will probably never get on Moon and Mars, but they are contributing smaller puzzles of the smaller pieces of the bigger puzzle. So either it's going to be growing food, either, or what kind of clothes you should wear, or how about psychology, what kind of light should be in the Mars base or Moon base. And also the fact is, we didn't need this for a short trip to Moon and back. But when we're going to go to Mars, which is going to take us probably 2 years to, or 2 years to go there and back, we're going to need to figure out, how to grow some of our food, especially if we want to stay there, how we're going to recycle water and all these advancements. And I got sidetracked now. I wanted to say that I was surprised that I noticed all around the world, anywhere I traveled, that you had some space enthusiasts and scientists. And as the best example I can give you, it's just Slovenia. We are, a country of 2 million people. We never had any space program and so on, besides Nordnung, who was army officer interested in rocketry in the 19th century. And it was his idea to make this geostationary station, which was later seen also in Kubrick's 2001. So it's like, the donut-shaped station that it's rotating so fast that it creates a gravity.
Gravity.
Yeah. So it was his idea, in fucking... Pardon.
So that's Slovenian, a Slovenian idea.
It was back in the day, it was still Austro-Hungarian Empire and so on and so on. But yeah, it was his idea, Herman Potočnik Nordnung. And, we have some, but that's, for the next 200 years, we had nothing, basically. But back to the story. Now, one of, let's say, the company that I photographed first was Duol. Duol is a company that built these inflatable structures that on Earth it's used to cover, let's say, a football pitch or tennis court in the winter. It's like a white inflatable structure, and their technology is so good that they received funding from NASA to develop this for Mars or Moon. So, and then And then we have Dr. Igor Mekjević, who is a big specialist in medicine and especially in losing bone density and muscles when you are in low gravity. Zero gravity. And in Slovenia, they're now testing one of the free, as called short arm human centrifuge. So it's a centrifuge that rotates. This rotation creates gravity, and then astronauts could do exercise on this sort of centrifuge. So this would make it way faster and easier than being strapped and run for 2 hours every day. And again, why I like both of these inventions that I'm mentioning now, they both have Earth applications. You know, you can put the structures of Dual in the desert, or you can put them in Greenland and grow food, or you know, put temporary housing for the people. Not to mention the short arm centrifuge, which can be used for people who are trying to recover after an accident, you know, and they are bed bound. They could, you know, strap them to this, and they could do, you know, some exercise without standing up, or, you know, elderly people in retirement homes and so on.
Hey, Matjaž, could you take a look at a bunch of your photos, and maybe you'll tell us the stories behind those photos?
Are you going to open them? Because I already start describing quite some of them.
Sure. What were like the ones that stood out to you quite a bit? So maybe the ones you wouldn't expect, the unusual ones.
So the unusual one, I mean, I definitely, first thing that comes to my mind, it's my last photo I did. I was this summer I was in Mongolia, where I was doing a project about reforestation, because Mongolia has only 8% of the forests, and they are trying to plant 1 billion trees till 2030, let's say. Anyway, very interesting story. Spent some time in Mongolia, but like always now, every time I travel now, I Googled Mongolia Mars exploration. Little did you know, in two days after this Googling, I managed to meet their cosmonaut who went to space in I believe 81. So I managed to meet the only and the first and the only Mongolian astronaut. But what was even more interesting is that I met a group of engineers and space enthusiasts who are trying to build a Mars simulation base in Gobi Desert. And they're called Mars V. And they also want to build a Mars rover, which they drew the inspiration from the camel, which is, you know, typical animal in Mongolia. So photo I took was actually an astronaut on a camel. So, you know,
I love
it's
that
a photo.
one.
It's a photo that, you know, some people think it's AI. Some people think it's from a movie set. And that's all okay. I want to people wonder. I want to people, especially, most importantly, be so intrigued by the photo, each photo of that I take, that they would go read about the photo and the project. Because when you see the guy on the camel, then you can read that, you know, the spacesuit the guy is wearing, it's their design, you know, and they 3D printed the helmet, and they adjusted for the super high temperatures and super low temperatures in Gobi Desert. And that the camel, it's basically sort of inspiration for the Mars rover that they're building, because it can traverse big, vast landscapes, you know, and dunes. Plus, it has enough energy stored to, you know, to do it for a long time.
We're getting very close to those Star Wars walkers. I don't
Exactly.
know. Is this was there a term for them? You know what the ones, those
I
huge
know.
machines.
Now I know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I forgot. But
Yeah.
that's the thing, I don't want to take photos of guys in white lab coats
Yeah.
because people are going to get bored after the third photo they're going to see,
Yes.
So I try to use the visual language of science fiction. This is the language that we all speak. We all, you already have references that I even forgot about it, and each youngster or not youngster, they're going to have their own references from movies, either comic books or computer games. And that's going to draw their attention. And then I hope they're going to read about it and learn about all these inventions and remarkable people around the world, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, for this project, I've been photographing across Asia, States, Europe. I've been also to South Africa because people most of the time, always would basically not connect African continent with space or astronomy. But only in South America, the South African Republic alone, you have more than 200 space startups.
Wow.
And not only that, they're now building the biggest radio satellite ever built. And it's called SKA. And it's basically one of the biggest scientific projects of all times. Because they're going to build 264, I hope I'm getting these names and numbers correct. Please don't kill me. But again, I'm just trying to inspire and do some more research yourself. Basically, they're going to build 264 antennas in South Africa.
Uh-huh.
And then they're going to build 100,000 small antennas in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to work together as one huge radio dish. And they want to, because the bigger the distance, the bigger reception, to make it, in plain words. And they're going to start, they're going to extend these satellites then also to some other African countries. Then they're thinking even to do it into South America and just improving the reception. Plus, what's extremely important, it's also, to bring the knowledge to these countries and interest in science and interest in space and job opportunities in space sector that was absolutely not possible before. I talk too much, sorry.
It's all good.
It's such a fascinating... I met so many amazing people everywhere that, I could go on forever,
I'm wondering,
basically.
I'm wondering what is going on here? Because sometimes on my show, I keep, I'm getting philosophical, and I have a hunch, maybe it's wrong, maybe it's right, that we are, as humanity, that we're sort of getting ready, we're growing wings to leave this planet. Because we're evolving into something that is building up those outward force. And what you're saying, what you're describing, the Mars and Earth project, is sort of pretty much underlining this concept that the world is brimming with upward motion. And would you subscribe to this? Is it I don't know. Is it a movement? Is it a readiness to once and for all? Because what we did 60 years ago was sort of baby steps, was to demonstrate, yes, we could technically do it. But this was just expedition. But now we're getting ready to go beyond the expedition type space travel. We're going in a way where things become commercial, where we're getting ready to stay. Like you left Slovenia, you went to China to perhaps stay for good. Now, why not go into orbit, to the moon, to Mars, to Venus, to whatever place to stay for good? Is this the moment in history? I don't know. Feels like it.
I mean, it's definitely exciting time in the space exploration, and you just the main thing is, even every time you ask any one of these scientists, when are we going to go in Mars, the answer, it's always in 10 years.
Yeah.
No matter if you ask in the 60s or 80s or 90s. So it's also now it's in 10 years. But it doesn't matter if we're going to get there or not, but just to have a clear goal and inspiration, this is what basically draws the progress of humanity, right? It's like Galileo Galilei once said something, I forgot a little bit, but it's like all the truths are easy to understand when they are discovered. But the main point is to discover them first, and it's same when people ask, why do we need to go to Mars? Don't we have enough problems and things to discover on Earth? Yes, but there are infinite, unlimited new things to discover there, which we don't even know that we need to know at the moment, and it can maybe open so many new opportunities for humanity, I mean, we are not like trees. We don't have, we can move, and we decide to move since beginning of humankind, that curiosity and advancement got us to climb off the tree, cross the ocean to discover, the new continents. I think what would be just important would that we don't screw up the new things that we discover. It doesn't seem that we're learning much from the past, but that's why you were before surprised when I mentioned there are space lawyers and space psychologists and space urban planners. New planet, it's got to be tabula rasa. We can do there whatever we want, and we can make it right, which is a very hopeful, thought. And I think this is also the beautiful thing. We can dream about being more equal. And also this project is trying to show, at least some hope for the, improving Earth and getting more equal opportunities, no matter, what color were you born, which continent were you born, what pronoun were you born, we all have opportunity to be part of this new, and I will not say last, but it's the new frontier. I'm sure when we're going to get to Mars, we're going to find another one and another one and another one.
As a photographer, what's the story you would tell about space if you were to go into space? Because I could imagine that it's space is pretty tricky, a tricky subject to photograph because it's so vast. So it's kind of, space photos quickly get boring because they all look the same, and so it's kind of, so what would your approach towards space storytelling be?
Would be the same approach as with the photos that I'm doing now. I try to tell this story through people because it's much easier for us, to relay and have a sympathy or interest in human being than to, a rock or piece of scientific equipment. So, it would be amazing for me to, let's say, be part of the first crew to Mars and capture the emotions, from the excitement to fear to, doubt, love maybe, so that would be, I think, especially in such a long and stressful, dangerous trip and also pioneer trip, there would be no lack of emotions, and this is what I would try to capture. And then, of course, maybe pair them with some Martian landscapes, which were never photographed as good as, or high def as before. So I'm sure it would be infinite amount of inspiration.
But those rover images from Mars, they are pretty fascinating because there are very high, there are lots of high-res footage and images out there already. So it's mind-blowing to see those photos and how close this place is. Like, technically, it's pretty far away, but it's like you standing out there at the same time knowing that this is a wildly deadly place still that needs to be made ready for our arrival. But at the same time, there's this beauty of it being a virgin place. And I think this is one of the main challenges we have to grapple with, and that is how to not export our human issues and human however we're treating this planet out there in that new world. Yeah.
I mean, that's, I guess, the topic of many TV shows, about space. You always have two teams. You have a team of scientists who they want to preserve it as it is. And then you have always the evil team of capitalists, mining company. And then maybe scientists fall in love with the bad guy, etc. So, but as I said, I think it's going to be hard to find all the solutions, but I hope at least some sustainability can be implemented.
Tell me about, Matjaž, tell me about photo technology. And I think there's something, is there something you were experimenting with 3D photography and space? So could you talk to this and how this could be relevant?
In the past, I was shooting a lot in 3D technique. That's true. I did even 2 photo books, which were portrait-based in 3D technique. I did a couple of ads and magazines and so on. So I was quite a big fan of 3D. But I always wanted 3D to be actually used to add something to the story. And what's interesting, that you bringing up this topic, it's that I keep having in mind that I have to add some 3D imaging also to my Mars project. People would say, why? The fact is that, especially when you have some photographs of the landscape, they were shot in 3D, so you can see the relief of the craters, let's say. So there is a 3D technology used in the maps of Mars and so on and so on. So I definitely would like to use some of 3D photos also in this series, and especially because up till now I already had, exhibitions of my Mars project all around the world, from Singapore to Sweden, Slovenia, China, France. And every time I exhibit, I want to push also the viewer's experience to a higher level. So, I don't want that it's just same size prints. People go and, maybe get bored. I want to always to adjust the project to the space. So last, my big exhibition I had in Shanghai, the building looked a little bit like a spaceship. It had 3 circular spaces with a little atrium in the middle that looked like a little space garden. So, I discussed with the gallery owners, and we put orange sand there, and we planted a flag of Mars right in the middle of this sand. I can talk about this flag of Mars a bit later, and then, in one room, we covered the floor with a carpet with a drone photo of this Mars simulation base, and so on and so on. So, I would love to, as I said, also use 3D technology where you have to put either VR goggles or a bit more traditional blue-red stereo glasses because it gives you another dimension, and it always surprises you, and brings you, a bit closer to the either person in the photo or the objects, because, they stand out, and you can really take time and look what would be, let's say, on a researcher desks in a laboratory and so on.
Who will be?
But yeah.
Who will be the first to set foot on Mars or on a different celestial body in the future? Who will be? Is it the Chinese, the Americans, Europeans, the Russians? Who will it be?
If I had to put bets at the moment, I would maybe Chinese. Maybe Chinese could be the first. I guess not Russians, but let's see. But yeah, I think the Chinese progress, and being more, how to say, with more one goal and one organization, instead of having NASA, working with ESA, working with SpaceX, working with Blue Origin and so on, and Boeing. I think this slows down lots of progress, lots of time. So if you ask me in 2024, I would say China, but let's see. I mean, my bigger question is, when, so always when I photograph
10 years.
Yeah, I know. So always when I shoot this project and I shoot some, young engineers and scientists, that I photograph them in South African Republic, or, in the Mars rover competition in the States, or in India. I'm more curious, are these the people who going to be standing on Mars? I take lots of portraits of, older people who are, either working with architecture or medicine. I know they will not be. But I'm curious if the people, I'm always, playing with the thought, will I able to photograph the first person who's going to stand on Mars? So this is, let's say, my small personal quest as part of this project, is to find this, at least one from the first crew that is going to be on Mars.
Yeah. What's the one story, maybe it's a human story or a technical story or whatnot, that really stands out to you from your work so far with the Mars on Earth project? Maybe it's a minor encounter or something that you observed, but you feel like that is really standing out and that tells a story.
It's very, very impossible to just name one, because I traveled the world and I think I met, the most brilliant minds in their own fields, and each one of them, they hold a special place in my heart, So I don't know. I mean, one to mention would be, let's say, Barbara Belvisi, that I met her first time on my trip in LA that I mentioned, that I talked before. And back then, we met and she talked about her idea of doing this pods and completely closed loop system in Mojave Desert, which at that time, it was nothing to show yet. So I was like, damn, it's such an interesting story. I would love to feature you, but we still have nothing to show. But then last year I was in Paris and I see, Barbara, it's actually in Paris, and they built a biopod, which is actually an inflatable structure that you can use for growing food in space, but again, also on Earth in either, very cold or very hot environments. So I met with Barbara after a couple of years. It was, after 4 or 5 years, and she had something to show. And these photos, I think they are, again, one of my favorites. Because with them, you can show the speed of progress in our, development. Again, you can show innovation that it can help life on Earth. You can see a extremely badass woman rocking, in the space sector. And also just the design of the biopod, it's definitely something being ready for the science fiction movie.
Will you let us link that photo to our show notes?
Sure. Yeah. And
because then
and you talked with her, right? You met her before in your podcast.
No, we had Barbara on the show 2 times, and she is truly fascinating because I like her vision about why she does the things she does, and she's truly inspiring. And as you mentioned, she's badass, lovely badass.
Yeah. And talking about badass and inspirational women, then also comes to my mind this company AEL from Tokyo, where they have a female CEO, and Miss Lena Okajima. They claim they are the first space entertainment company.
Huh.
What it means is they created a satellite which can shoot out artificial shooting stars. So, you're going to have an anniversary of, 1,000 podcast, or, you want to surprise one of your friends for a wedding. You can, pay, it's a bit pricey, but you can pay to AEL and say, on top of, in Paris, 11 p.m., give me 3 shooting stars.
Yeah.
And then this is going to happen. So I think it's a great, especially from marketing perspective, because this is how you get the stories going and getting some attention. But then, of course, there are satellites, they're gathering also other valuable information and has also other use than just being a catapult for shooting stars around the world.
Fantastic story. Matjaž, if the call came, would you go? Would you leave Earth and go into space?
I would go. I think it's to be in the historic books, as a first photographer on Mars, would be a risk worth taking. So it's very easy to find my website or Instagram or email. So, either, I speak a bit Chinese. So if there's Chinese, I can communicate with them. If it's the American company, I'm ready. And find me and call me. I'm ready.
I'm asking because there's a recurring question that I keep asking on the show. And that question is, if you were to go into space, it's usually a long and boring trip because distances are very vast. Mm-hmm. So my question to you is, what's the one piece of music, the one tune you would not want to miss on that journey into the unknown that you would want to pick and put on a playlist? Because we have a playlist for the aspiring space traveler on Spotify. So what would be your contribution?
It's gonna probably already have it. It's Space Oddity from David Bowie. So
do you have
David Bowie?
Do we have another pick? Because that one is already taken.
I know. What's the other one from David Bowie? About Major Tom?
Well, Major Tom, that's already taken. So
okay. Then
it doesn't have to. It doesn't necessarily have to do with space.
I know, but if you're in the space, that and then probably the opening song from Odyssey 2001, or recently the Barbie.
Thus spoke Zarathustra. No.
Is it? So there's the orchestra. So something dramatic,
Something dramatic.
Yeah. I think that would be
good. And now my last question to you, Matjaž. This place here is called the Space Cafe Podcast. It's a coffee place, so to say, where we hang out and share ideas. And in coffee places, now and then, when you're tired, you energize yourself with an espresso, with a very intense shot of coffee. Now, I challenge you to share an espresso for the mind with me and the audience. What could be an idea, a shot of inspiration you would like to share with me and the audience? Whatever kind of topic you want to choose from.
So I think it's just, the summary of what we were talking about, I think the space and the new frontier, it really gives us opportunity to basically start from scratch in a way, to do the things right and be very, again, inclusive society. So just I want to finish on this note. Let's do things right. Let's collaborate, no matter where you're from, and go reach to the stars.
And I think it's also from what you have said so far is for what I've heard about China. I think it's also important on this note that you're mentioning that there are many equal worlds on Earth and not just one world. There is
exactly
a variety of different angles and they are equally valid. There's no one better than the other.
Exactly. Well said.
Fantastic, Matjaž Tančič. This was incredibly interesting to hear your wisdom and your insights from a different part of my world, and yet at the same time, that wisdom about our common future. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much for your time and a very pleasant conversation.
Thank you, everyone, for sticking around. I love it. I truly love it when ideas are widening our horizons. Isn't this what this is all about? I mean, like, seriously, learning is the coolest thing ever. And Matjaž definitely let me learn quite a bit about our beautiful planet and our beautiful time we live in the time of space exploration. If you enjoyed this show as much as I did, consider telling a friend about it. A friend you feel like is as nerdy, as interested in space exploration as you are. Maybe you can even make a couple of new friends by referring that show to someone. However you will decide, if there's a little time left in your world, consider giving us a rating for this show on your favorite podcast platform. And to be honest, I hate asking you for this, but obviously it's the only language that the internet speaks. And if we want to grow the show, we need to tell the algorithms that are deciding what lives and what does not, that someone is actually liking this show. And so by your contribution, by your support, we're telling the algorithms to distribute this show to even wider audiences. And this would be the coolest thing ever to me, to let others in our little Space Cafe podcast universe. Anyways, I'm really excited about this episode, and I'm really excited about the one coming up in 2 weeks from now. Thank you, my friends, for sticking around and your enthusiasm so far. It's been a couple of years now. Thank you so much for this. And talk to you in 2 weeks from now. Thank you. Bye-bye.